Hi and welcome to the next series of Leadership in Real Life. Today I have with me Chandrashekar, Chandra as I would like to call him, a veteran in HR, where he started his career in sales and marketing and has actually moved from business into HR. And there's no one better to speak on the topic that we have today, and that's networking in organizations. Chandra, thank you very much for accepting to come on to Leadership in Real Life.
Ravi, absolute honor to be with you, and any conversation with you has always been fantastic and beneficial to me, so love to be here.
Chandra, networking is seen as a way of influencing an organization, typically. And you actually took it to the next level. You put a tool to it as well. So can you talk something on that?
Yeah. This was a fantastic tool which got introduced in one of the sessions, one of the conversations with a senior person like yourself. And we built and played around with that particular tool, and it is known as network mapping. Okay. What it basically means is, as a leader, or even without a title, your job is to influence an outcome or somebody else towards an outcome in an organization. Many of the times you don't have direct access to people whom you want to influence and get the right outcome. So how do you handle this? Now, networking is a generic term which we use to go and meet somebody and understand their perspectives and weave that into our own way of doing. But what network mapping does is goes one step beyond and says, hey, if I have to influence Ravi and I don't know Ravi that much and I don't have the credibility of Ravi doing what I think is right, how do I get Ravi to see my perspective? So the network mapping simply suggests that look around the Ravi who you know very well and you have a great frequency and the same kind of frequency that person shares with Ravi. Go sit with him and him or her and explain how it benefits Ravi or the overall organization. Ravi will be a lot more receptive when I approach the topic and elaborate on what the benefits and what should be the action. There's a simple example.
So what you're telling me is, if you want to influence the organization and a key decision maker within an organization, first look at those people who are influencers to that key decision maker. That is provided you don't have access to that decision maker.
Correct.
And then try and influence the thought process of that decision maker through
the community influencing.
Correct. So this is very similar to these networks, social networks like LinkedIn or Facebook, where you get people to introduce you to each other. So you think something like a Facebook will actually help in this cause?
It does, even today. There are about 600, 700 people in my network, and you and I are having a conversation, you make a comment on something that I posted or vice versa. Your entire network of 1,000 people and my entire network of 600, 700 people get to see that. And that is where you see, can you introduce Chandra to somebody, you get those requests. That is network mapping on social media. Now,
so, if I look at networking, one of the things that I was told years ago when I joined an organization was, cultivate your networks. And one way of doing that is having those corridor conversations, especially if you're not in the headquarters and you're sitting far away from headquarters. True. It's worthwhile landing up there at the headquarters, having those corridor conversations. And so, have you seen any benefit to this?
Look, personally, I have always struggled when I go into a seminar and there are 500, 600 people. I am not the first one to walk up to somebody and exchange my business card with somebody. There are a lot of people like us. Why? Because it is a very formal setup. You are expected to behave in certain manner, and people actually have think, okay, I don't know him, so why? What's in it for me? Whereas in a corridor conversation, it is completely instantaneous, silent, it's not planned, and it doesn't have any formal boundaries of the behaviors that are expected. Even that, I think, is the key for anybody, a fresher to a senior most executive, to build that network. Now that network can be used to influence outcomes or to understand what is happening on the ground. So what should I influence? So bottom line, corridor conversations are absolutely critical, and you got to keep your ears and eyes open.
One of the things that I heard earlier about corridor conversations is that somehow it seems to get termed as gossip. What are your thoughts around this?
Now, how do you use it, and what is the outcome that you are looking at? The corridor conversations or a networking or a simple conversation with anybody can be of a simple nature where you are getting certain information to yourself. Now, whether it is networking or gossip depends on what you do with that information. Now, if I use that information to pull down somebody or create a bad environment, I would term it as gossip. But if I use the same input to see how can I help the organization or the individual to become better and move forward in life, that to me is networking. That's the fine line between the gossip and being a good networker.
When we worked together, you used a very powerful tool called the smoker's corner, where you would land up at the smoker's corner and actually have conversations which, when brought back into office, had terrific impact in our decision making, and we made some really good decisions. So, what are your thoughts, and what made you go into that smoker's corner?
I started calling smoker's zone as a strategy zone. When you stand there and watch people who have let their guard down, 5 or 6 of them coming together of the same age, and they're having their conversations, they have a lot more information to be gathered because they are carefree and they don't bother what's happening around. They are in a great mood or not very happy. Either way, they are exchanging information. And I found spending some time there, actually listening to what's happening around, the conversation that is happening around, is a very easy way of addressing issues that are sitting in people's mind. And an environment like a smoking zone where you are either gone there for pleasure, so you have let your guard down, or you are frustrated and you are letting go of that frustration in your own safe group, there is a lot more that you can pick up. Tagging back to the previous conversation, that can be gossip or something that you can pick up and do something positive about it. And we did a lot of things very positively, as you know. The other aspect of strategy zone, and why I started calling it strategy zone, is fortunately or unfortunately some of my key stakeholders were also smokers. So the 10 minutes where they are going to let their guard down is at the smoking zone. So if you catch them there or if you pull them out for a smoke, you can get your decisions, discussions, debates, even fights done in a very non-threatening atmosphere and get easy decisions out of that conversation.
This is a really wonderful thing because you said it's a non-threatening environment, and I think that's the essential part of this. And the second one was you were able to influence and get certain things done which would have taken longer for you in the organization. So it comes back to therefore the informal side of the networks. So what is your prescription, or what do you think should be the approach of people who are not naturals with this networking?
First of all, I think especially people who are not natural, Ravi, very, very well, introverts, extrovert. Okay, so it's not about which behavior is right or wrong, it's about where we draw our energy from. So when you are in a setup like that, first thing that I would like to do is, what is my purpose? And my purpose in this gathering is to create visibility for myself, which is not wrong if you use it in a positive manner, or gather some information with the senior people who are there in that particular seminar or a workshop. So if you define the purpose for yourself, it makes it that much easy for you to go and have a conversation with. Now what it may do is, you may not be, I may still not be able to go and talk to everyone, but at least it helps me to go and target somebody, identify somebody where that my purpose is going to be served. And that's a good way to start. But once the ball starts rolling, and once you can see that it's not only you want something from that person, but that person is also learning something from you, that is when the real power of networking starts dawning on us.
So that's a very nice point that you raised, that when you're looking at networking, it cannot be with a selfish interest. It has to be something where you are genuinely reaching out to the other person. And by the way, if that helps in building a consensus on a particular topic or a decision, that's fine. Otherwise, you're going to reach out, and that is why you need to understand the purpose as to why you are reaching out to that person. So there are a lot of interest groups in organizations. So an organization would have a set of people who are interested, let's say, in music, or let's say in yoga, or some such other activities which they kind of do beyond their office hours. And people come together to do that. So how do you think that helps in the building of networks?
That's an amazing way of building network. Usually what one does is, building network or connecting with people is restricted to the vision or view that I have in my particular role or particular outcome that I am driving. So if I am in HR world, and I am working with a particular business leader, let's say in a technology setup. So many a times my networking is going to be limited within this HR or technology business. But the kind of things that you are talking about, whether it's a music or whatever, those hobbies which are outside of the working hours, can draw people from various other functions. It could be finance, it could be operations, it could be sales. So you will learn a lot more in such networking.
Do you think that networking, and have you seen it, help you in career moves?
Absolutely. Ravi, in the beginning you did talk about me as a salesperson, marketing person who moved into HR. I used to be inside the operation theatre helping doctors implant permanent pacemakers or use angioplasty angiogram hardwares. I used to sell fetal monitors, and I used to hear those wonderful baby heartbeats and demonstrate those equipments. From there to becoming head of HR of a large organization, if that transformation has happened, a couple of things have helped me. One is people with very keen eyes looking at you and saying, okay, I can take a chance with this guy. And the second one is my own affinity to take risk and move on and learn lots of other things. Yeah. So very important that you have a network which recognizes and challenges you to do something more than what you thought were capable of.
Chandra, it brings me to another question. See, I've also been in sales like you, and over a period of time and years, you start building an extensive network of friendships and some acquaintances, and then you turn around and see that some of these aren't working out. So my question to you is, should we put an end, and then how do we go about doing that?
You're right, when we keep growing and we keep moving from one challenge to the other, the network that you have built previously may or may not contribute to your current challenges, and hence you go on and build bigger, different set of network. When I look at my entire environment or ecosystem and all the networks that I have built over a period of time, I typically try and put them in three buckets. One is somebody who has been part of a good network, it has worked for mutual benefit, and today it is not working. Okay, that is one group. The second group could be, and possibly all of us have experienced this, are a set of people who have not just once but several times, a few times, used the networking for personal gains without really putting it out in open. Okay. The third group is who will continually contribute and who are, those associations are mutually beneficial and challenge each other and keep going. Now we all know what to do with the third group. You keep growing, you keep them close to your heart and absolutely keep nourishing the entire, that kind of an ecosystem. The first one which I talked about, which is a great network but now it's not really contributing. I have seen several people do different things with that, but I keep those very much alive. The second variety that I talked about, people who use networking for their personal benefit and repeatedly so, without putting the cards on the table, are people that I weed out. It's a very small set, but you got to be careful because the kind of network that you build is a representation of what you are as an individual. Now, if I introduce somebody to an influential person in my network, now that person is going to accept my introduction because of me, not because of the person who is being introduced. So you got to be careful.
That's a great point that you're talking of, because many a time we see that networking can get misused. To the close of this conversation that I'm having with Chandra, as you can see, networking is an essential part of every organization and every employee in an organization. It has to be done in a way which is non-threatening. It must have a clear purpose, and the purpose is not something that is only selfish, but is for the organization as a whole, the good of the organization. From us to get out of our comfort zone and try out new things as well. That's how the network starts expanding. As Chandra says, informal networks are critical. So building or being part of those groups like the skill in building these networks within an organization. And the way we use the information that we get differentiates whether we are putting it to good use or whether it just becomes gossip. Chandra, it's been wonderful talking to you, and thank you very much for featuring in leadership in real life.
Thank you so much for having me.